Greetings to you all. My name is Elizabeth Nambinsobia. I'm currently working as the manager of the finance management unit of Mackay University School of Public Health. I'm an accountant by profession, and I've got an opportunity to work in the areas of finance, accounting, grants management, and procurement for the last 22 years. I have the pleasure to present to you or to facilitate a grants and financial management session tonight. Welcome to you all. And I'll start by sharing the slides. The session outline includes financial management. We shall look at financial management. Then we shall look at the fundamentals of grants management and key considerations in grants management. We shall start with the first section, which is finance management, and we shall straight away go to define finance management. Financial management is the efficient and effective management of funds in such a manner as to accomplish the objectives of the organization. It is the planning, organizing, controlling, and monitoring of the financial resources of an organization. Basically, if you know what management is, which is planning, organizing, controlling, and monitoring, then with financial management, we just add the word management of finance, planning, organizing, monitoring, and controlling of financial resources. Basically, we've talked about efficient and effective management of funds. That's what finance management means. It's not about managing funds only, but it has to be efficient and effective. And how do we do it is what we want to look at in this session. The process involves the following: managing scarce resources, managing risks, managing strategically, and managing by objectives. Organizations operate, what do we mean by managing scarce resources in finance management? Organizations operate in a competitive environment where funds are increasingly scarce. We must therefore make sure that funds and resources are used properly and to the best effect to achieve the organization's mission and objectives. So if we don't use our resources so well, in such a competitive environment where we have always limited resources, then we will be poor finance managers. And finance management deals with effectively and efficiently managing the scarce resources. Let's go to managing risks. Organizations face internal and external risks, which can threaten operation and even survival, non-compliance, liquidity, fraud, fire, etc. There are so many risks that you can mention that can befall organizations or projects or programs and then threaten their operation and even survival, but also failure to achieve their objectives and goals or deliverables. So as good finance managers, for us not to have anything to threaten our operation and even survival, then we need to be also very good risk managers. We must manage risk as finance managers. Risks must be identified and actively managed in an organized way to limit their occurrence, or at least the damage if they really, I beg your pardon, risks must be identified and actively managed in an organized way to limit their occurrence, or at least the damage if they really have to occur, or at least limit the damage. In other words, that's what we mean here. Managing strategically. Finance management is part of management as a whole. This means organizations must keep an eye on the bigger picture. This third element of managing strategically refers to managing an organization as a whole. I cannot be a good finance manager, or you will not be a good finance manager. By saying finance manager, I mean anyone who is managing their finances, not necessarily the finance manager by title or by profession. If you're trying to manage your finances for your project or program organization, even if you're not a finance manager by profession, that's what I mean. I mean anyone who is managing their finances. You cannot be a good finance manager if you're not managing finances you are not concerned about the organization as a whole or project as a whole. If you're managing finances for a project, you must you must looking forward to achieving the success of the entire project, not only saying I'm managing these funds and I don't mind about the outcome, I don't mind about achieving our objectives, then you'll be a very poor finance manager. So that's what we mean by managing strategically. Finance management is part of management as a whole. This means organization must keep an eye on the bigger picture, looking at how the whole organization is being financed in the medium and long term, not just focusing on projects and programs. So we need to plan, do, and review to ensure that the success of the entire project, program, organization, etc. is catered for. We are achieving what we need as a whole. Then fourth, managing by objectives. As financial managers, we must aim at achieving the overall objectives of the projects, programs, and organizations or institutions at large. We must aim at as good finance managers, in other words, we must aim at achieving our objectives. It might be similar strategically, but strategically means you must mind about the welfare of the entire organization. This one, the first one, specifically mentions aiming at achieving objectives. In other words, if you're clearing so many dollars, your United States dollars, to fund a certain activity, you must ensure as finance manager that the money is used for the purpose and that the project or program organization is achieving the desired objectives. Otherwise, it will be very poor finance management if you dish out too many dollars, a lot of dollars, and you do not mind about the outcome. That will be poor finance management. What is the importance of finance management? We are going to be fast on this to help organizations make effective and efficient use of resources to achieve objectives and fulfill commitment to stakeholders. Help organizations gain the confidence of funding agencies, partners, and beneficiaries. It helps, finance management helps to gain confidence of our stakeholders by us being very efficient, very effective, compliant, and able to deliver to achieve our desired objectives. Give the finance management help to give the advantage in the competition for increasingly scarce resources. You are able to compete favorably if you were a good finance manager. It also helps organizations prepare themselves for long-term financial sustainability. This is very key. We don't want to be operating so well today and tomorrow we are no more. Good finance managers look at long-term financial sustainability. If you're managing finances today, we are aiming at long-term sustainability. Not that I'm finishing this year and we're doing so well without thinking of how we are going to operate in the future. Good finance management also looks into the future, long-term financial sustainability. Let's go to subsection 1.4. Who is responsible for finance management? Many feel that the accountants, the finance managers, people related to finance are the ones that are supposed to manage the finances. That is wrong. Since we need money in everything, many times I've said that money is the blood of everything, is the heart of everything. Just because in this era, we need money to do everything. So if we don't manage funds, then we shall fail funds well. If we don't manage our finances well, then we shall fail in everything. So because of the need for money, finance management is the responsibility of everyone in an entity, in a project or program, etc. Top management. You have to put systems in place to guide finance management, to have a strong internal control environment, to avoid the conflict of interest, to avoid fraud, to avoid non-compliance. If you do this very well, then you'll be a very good finance manager because you control the system, even if you're there or not, and you can't see every single small process. So what you do for you to have to be a very good finance manager is put controls in place that help you to monitor, even if you're able to supervise a small process or not, things will move on well. So as top management, the best way you can manage your finances is putting systems that are strong in place to guide finance management, or the systems generally. party, you are the party to the signing. The moment you append your signature to a document, then you are you're managing the finances already. So you be careful, whatever you append signature to, that you're complying, you're managing well, you're on track. You are the accounting officers. In the case of anything, they will ask you. By the time they look for your accountant, they will start with you. So you are such a very important person as top management in the management of finances. You can't exonerate yourself from management of finances, think that it's the finance staff. No. Implementers, the people who go to the field, the people who do the people who do the work, basically. If we talk about research, the people who go to the field. If we talk about teaching or training workshops or training workshops, the people who go to train, who implement the work plan. In other words, they have to account. Accountability is key to all stakeholders. So we shall talk about accountability, what it's composed of. They are very important. The accountability is an important element of finance management. So the implementers are key in the management of finances, and they're the ones who expense, basically. So they are really key in effective finance management. How they manage the cash, the funds themselves, as related to the implementation is key. So you can see how important you are in finance management. But of course, finance staff have the obvious roles. They do everything to make sure you follow the international accounting standards, to make sure we comply, to make sure we have the supporting documents, to make sure when they come to review our institutions, we are ready, we have all the supporting documents, we have a very good trail, etc. They do all the obvious roles. They support you in the finance management process because for them, they are even well conversant with what is required. So you see that we are all important as far as finance management is concerned. Let's just go to the principles of financial management. We are going to, there are 7 here, and since we are going to look at one by one, I will not waste time by reading them. The first one is consistency. Consistent use of financial policies and procedures for efficient operation. This is key because some policies change the outcome, the performance report for organizations. So we need to be consistent of which policies we use for us to be able to track and report, have an accurate report of the performance over time. If I say that I performed so well last year, and this year I'm not performing well, is it because of the effect of the change in policies? These policies can greatly impact on the outcome, on the performance of our institutions. So we need to keep them as consistent as possible. And if we need to change them, because we're not saying we don't change them, if you need to change them, first document the impact of the change and why, justify why you need to change. Is it really justifiable to change the existing policies? If so, document the impact. This will help you to know the effect of that change to the finances. If you have deteriorated in performance, then you can say, hey, maybe because of this change in policy. Yes, it was for the good, but now we know why we have performed worse than last year. So it's really important to be consistent, but if you can't be consistent, then document the impact and the reason why you have to change certain policies. That is the principle of consistency in financial management. Then let's go to accountability. All stakeholders have the right to know how finance and other support are being used to meet objectives. Accountability is the moral and legal duty placed on an individual, group, organization to explain how funds, equipment, or authority given has been used. When we talk about accountability, first of all, accountability is very key, in financial management. So when we talk about accountability, most of us think that we are talking about financial only or monetary accountability. But accountability goes beyond to mean even non-financial activities. You must have a trail of everything you do. Is it recruitment? How did you get the staff? To avoid the conflict of interest, get long staff for your projects, programs, organizations, you must have a very good trail where you use the very documented process for your institutions and a good trail documented. If you monitoring your staff while implementing an activity, do you have a good trail of how you do it? Do you have a trail of you have monitored how you have monitored your sub-grantees? Every process that you do must have a very good trail. Keep a documented process. The documentation, by the way, in this era might be digital, doesn't have to be in ad form, but you must have a good trail of whatever you do. That's what we mean by accountability. Not only mental accountability, know everything that you do. That is key in financial management, because financial management, we mentioned, goes hand in hand with the deliverables, with the achievements, with the strategic plans of your organization. So you cannot exonerate money from the activities, the implementation bit from the technical bit. In this era, finance managers must interest themselves in the achievements of the organization as a whole, not only dishing out cash. That era has gone, where just giving money and we have kept the books without knowing the outcomes. So accountability is key to all of us, whether finance people, whether you, the managers, the leaders of the organizations. Money goes hand in hand with the outcome. So that's why accountability is key in finance management, but and to the organizations, our organizations as a whole. Transparency is another principle of finance management. Organizations must be open about their work, providing information about activities and plans to all stakeholders. This includes preparing accurate, complete, and timely financial reports. We must keep our stakeholders up to date with a very good trail. We must be open of whatever we do, our activities. We must have reports in terms of annual reports, in terms of deliverable reports, etc. And all our stakeholders must have these. Another principle of financial management is viability. Viability is a measure of organizations used to determine their financial continuity and security going concern. We have already talked about sustainability. This is key in financial management. We cannot be good finance managers for organizations which will collapse tomorrow. So the only way they can tell we are good finance managers is the continuity of organizations for such a long time. As finance managers, I'm saying financial management in quotes. This is in quotes. When I see finance managers, I said everyone who manages their finances qualified to be a finance manager. We must interest ourselves to the continuity and security of our organizations. We don't want to manage finances today very well. We say we are doing so well, and tomorrow the organizations collapse. Viability is a key principle also of finance management, just like the rest of the principles. Then stewardship. Financial stewardship involves taking good care of the financial resources. We're interested, I beg your pardon, let me repeat this sentence. Stewardship is yet another principle of financial management, and it involves taking good care of the financial resources we are interested with to make sure they are used for the purpose intended. Through strategic planning, managing risks, and setting up appropriate systems, a strong internal control environment, then we are being good stewardships of the resources they have entrusted to us, making sure we have such a strong, conducive environment to make sure we achieve the desired objectives, to make sure we manage the resources entrusted to us well, is what we mean stewardship. We must be good stewards as finance managers. We say this through planning, managing risks, setting up a strong system, setting up an appropriate system to ensure we are able to manage the resources well. Integrity is yet another principle for financial management, and the integrity of an organization's financial records and reports are dependent on the accuracy and completeness of the financial records. Integrity depends on accuracy and completeness of the financial records. But accuracy and completeness, partly, each of these feeds into the other, you know, they overlap. The only way you can be accurate and complete and ensure integrity is you having a strong internal control environment. You be in charge, because you might think that your integrity is clear, you are accurate and complete, but because of the gaps, because your system is not strong, there are itches here and there. There's fraud somewhere, you don't know. People have conflict of interest, you don't know. So that will impact on your integrity. So these principles overlap. Having a strong internal control environment, being a good steward, helps you to have high level of integrity at the end of the day. Then accounting standards is another principle of financial management. The system of keeping financial records and documentation must be of internationally acceptable accounting standards and principles. We have finance people who are well conversant with these accounting standards, but us being good finance managers, we might interest ourselves in the current acceptable accounting standards and principles. Once in a while, you have time, if you're managing finances for organizations, even if you have the finance manager, you have accountants, interest yourself in the existing international accepted accounting standards and principles. With time, you get well conversant with them as you interest yourself story by story, read one, see what it means. By the time your finance people come do certain things, you know, okay, they are doing it because of this. Oh, yeah, they're not doing it well because the international acceptable accounting standards and principles say this. So interest yourself as you find time in an internationally acceptable accounting standards and principles, because one of the principles of finance management is us following the internationally accepted accounting standards and principles in our keeping our financial records and documentation, etc. There are 4 building blocks of financial management, and these these accounting records, financial planning, internal controls, and financial monitoring. I will not dwell so much on this side because we're going to look into the blocks one by one. The first one is every organization must keep accurate accounting records of this financial, of its financial transactions to show how funds have been used. Accounting records are valuable information about how the organization is being managed and whether it is achieving its objectives. Accounting records are key in financial management. You cannot say we're managing finances without accounting records. The second building block financial management is financial planning. This has to do with strategic planning and budgeting. A budget is a quantified plan. A budget is a guide of any financial management system, and it helps in monitoring the use of funds, accountability, and performance measurement. So finance planning is one of the building blocks of finance management. We started with accounting records, those ones are key. Financial planning is key. Those are the 4 building blocks. Those are 2. We are going to look at 2 others. Internal controls. These are safeguards to an organization. We have been talking about a strong internal control environment. These internal controls including proper documentation, having proper documentation, having segregation of duties, division of roles, duties into small components, so that not one person can perform a task from start to end. Segregation of duties helps us that no one can accomplish a process by themselves, meaning that if someone wants to do something, or maybe God forbid, to steal money, they cannot start and end the process by themselves, because there are so many people they have to go through that will prevent them from stealing from that safety. So you would have controlled that fraud. So segregation of duty is one of the key elements of internal controls. Authorization and approvals. There must be structure, well-documented structure, who does what, who approves what. That's also a strong control that people have to go through people to approve certain things. Then audit and review is also another one. Is there another one I've forgotten? Policies and procedures. Oh, that is key. Well-documented policies and procedures to guide operations. Those are the elements that build a strong internal control environment. Then the first building block of financial management is financial monitoring. An organization having set a budget, have kept and reconciled it according to records in a clear and timely manner, it is then possible to produce financial reports for all stakeholders. Internal budget monitoring report helps organization to monitor the progress of projects and annual financial report statements to provide accountability to external stakeholders. So financial monitoring goes beyond having the budget. You must, from having the budget, then you must manage its implementation. Then if you manage its implementation, by the monitoring goes hand in hand, we have already mentioned, with activities. You can't say I'm monitoring the budget, personnel we have spent only 10%, but have you related this to the outcome? We don't want you to have spent 90% of personnel when no activities have been done. So monitoring means managing the flow of the funds as per budget also, but also relating it to the outcome. That's what we mean by financial monitoring. Effective finance management. There must be financial systems and procedure to have effective finance management. We have been talking about policies and procedures. There must be financial systems and procedures, a strong one for you to have a strong internal control environment, for us to have an effective finance management system. We cannot have effective finance management without good systems and procedures, which impacts on how strong the internal control environment is. Good finance management must also cover two aspects: financial accounting and finance management. Most of us are used the financial accounting, where we prepare do bookkeeping, reconcile, prepare financial reports. But good finance management goes beyond the financial accounting to do also management accounting. And we are going to elaborate on this. Financial accounting is the method of recording, classifying, and summarizing information for various purposes. It's a procedure used to keep track of financial and monetary transactions. This is what we know in as finance management, because it deals with the traditional recording, classifying, making reports. But now finance management goes beyond this. Not now, all along. Good finance management goes beyond the figures. Management accounting is going beyond figures. Management accounting uses data gathered by the finance accounting process, analyzes the results with the budget, and then analyze the information for decision-making and control purposes. Management accounts are mainly for internal use and should be produced in a regular and timely basis. So we can see management accounting, it goes beyond the figures. This one now uses the data, the figures, the data gathered from the figures to analyze the results and make a decision on the future of the organization. This is key. So we are now comparing financial accounting to management accounting. Financial accounting records transactions, classifies transactions, reconciles records, summarizes transactions, presents financial data. Yet management accounting compares results to goals, variation reasons determined. What are the reasons for the variations? Identify corrective action, provide forecasts, analyzes information, decision-making, etc. You're using the figures now to plan for the organization. That's what we call management accounting. Key characteristics of organizations with highly effective financial management systems. Written and followed policies and procedures are key. We have said this and we cannot repeat it into detail in interest of time, but we must know that we have no choice. For us to be effective finance managers, we must have written and followed policies and procedures, but they should be reviewed over time to avoid any gaps in the future as we move along. Qualified and trained financial staff. Effective communication. Something not communicated cannot be done. You don't assume that people do things you've not told them. Something not communicated is dead, it's buried, because people not know what you want. There must be an effective communication system for you to have an effective finance management system. Succession planning and cross-training. This one caters for continuity and sustainability. If you have a very good finance management system now, you're a very good finance manager, what will happen tomorrow without your team? And then cross-training. If this one is not there, then this one can take on the roles. Self-assessment and continuous improvement. There's always room for improvement. If you know that, then you'll be a very good finance manager. Active, knowledgeable, and informed board and finance committees. There must be boards or committees to oversee the finances. Leave alone the account staff and whatever. You must have a committee to discuss a few financial decisions, or the system itself. Do you have a strong system? Are there any gaps? How can you improve the gaps? etc. Have you achieved your desired objective goals, and what has impacted, what has affected what has affected your achievement of the desired objectives, and how can you improve in the future? These are the board and finance committees to oversee the finance management. Key elements for financial reporting. We are now looking at financial reporting. Prepare all financial reports with information from the organization's accounting system. Do not cook information. Good finance management must have a backup data. If you have a financial report, make sure it's backed up by information elsewhere from your accounting system. Review and reconcile the information to ensure accuracy prior to report submission. Ensure files have the proper documentation to support all information reported in financial reports. Submit all reports on time. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the first section of financial management. Let's quickly go to grants management. And that's the outline. I want to not read this because the detail includes it already. The first section of grants management is grants and grants management definitions. A grant is a financial or monetary award given by a government agency, foundation, corporation, or other entity to fund a particular project. It is usually thought by the grantee through a proposal or application. It could be received from a funding or donor agency for a set of mutually agreeable goals or deliverables. That's straightforward, it's a definition. Then we are continuing with the definitions. Grants management is a process of adequate overall oversight and monitoring of the project funds that includes planning, a plan, a work plan, a budget, identify and record all funding related to the projects. Adhere strictly to all terms and conditions. This is key. You need to know that you must adhere to the terms and conditions of the grant. That is key in grants management. Have proper financial control. Adhere to technical standards. Meet the needs of the beneficiaries or other stakeholders. That's grants management. Grants management life cycle and overview. The grants management life cycle includes pre-award, award, and post-award. If you want, you can even say close-out. I'm using the word if you want because many times post-award includes the close-out, but you can pull it out and have a fourth process in the cycle, which is close-out. It can be separate. Otherwise, it's pre-award, award, post-award, and close-out. Here, we are leaving out close-out because it's part of the post-award. Pre-award involves defining funding, soliciting for funding opportunities, proposal development, proposal submission, and award receipt. The pre-award stage begins when the agency solicits application through a funding opportunity announcement, and it's after the applications have been reviewed and scored. Strong organizations in terms of grants management have a pre-award process, well documented, or a pre-award office, people to manage the pre-award, because that's how you'll be able to find funding opportunities, be able to submit as many proposals as possible, and get in turn getting many grants. So as good grants managers, I adhere to you to have a strong pre-award process within the grants management cycle. Then award includes negotiation of the terms, execution, which means signing the documents, and project setup. After review of all applications, the donor agency determines whether an award is to be made, and there we start the negotiation, execution, and project setup within the award stage. Then post-award is the real implementation of the grant. This is the longest in the grants management life cycle. Establish budgets. In the post-award, invoice the sponsor, award management. You're managing now, you're executing the award itself, you're implementing. Compliance, reporting, and award closeout are key in post-award. The post-award phase begins when a successful applicant, known as an awardee or grantee, signs the grant contract or draws on awarded funds and starts implementing the objectives of the grant. That's what we call post-award. So here we are elaborating on the grants management cycle. Proposal development is part of a pre-award. What do we do in proposal development? You find donor agency opportunity, funding opportunity announcements, funding donor agency requests for proposals, finding them, proposal preparation, internal review and submission of the proposal review and approval by the funding or donor agency. This is part of the pre-award. Award receipt. That's another thing. Then project setup and award management is the post-award we've been mentioning, and we said it includes contract negotiation, signing and invoicing, setting up new project numbers and budget codes in the line with the internal procedures. That's what we call chart of accounts in finance, in accounting rather. technical and financial reporting, maintaining effective communication with stakeholders, management of project records or database. These are all activities in the post award that we must do. Monitoring of partners, project execution activities, budget monitoring in relation to plan budget, that is budget implementation, financial programmatic and on-site monitoring, detect early warning signs of trouble and non-compliance and act accordingly within the post award. Be on the alert for any warning signs. Application for budgeted allocation and no cost extensions, that's part of the post award. Then award closeout. But what is key in post award is effective communication. Whatever you're not so sure of, consult the stakeholders. Timely and quality deliverables is key, and performance monitoring is key in the post award. Then award closeout. Many people, this is another key process because many of us stop at the post award without closing out the grants. But grant closeout are key because first of all, it impacts on your reputation. You have very good success reports. You have so many funders or stakeholders admitting that you've successfully completed this project. You know, you don't have anything outstanding with the funder because you've tried to close out to ask what is pending. You've submitted the final reports. You've got a clearance from the funder that you've successfully completed that project. You must make sure there's nothing outstanding because you might do post award and finish. You think you've submitted everything, but the funder thinks there is something lacking. So ensure you've closed out. And how do we do it? Submit final technical and financial reports, review closeout terms of agreements. What does the funder require to close out? If they don't have the terms, you ensure you pursue them, you engage them, and they tell you what they expect of you when you're closing out. But most of them will direct you on what they want in the closeout terms of agreement. In the terms of an agreement, they will tell you what they want at closeout. Request for the final tranche of funds, disposal of project assets, equipment as per guidelines of the funder. If there are no funder guidelines on this, use your institutional guidelines to make sure you dispose of project assets. Disposal doesn't mean that you're going to give them again to the funder or you sell them, but you're documenting and asking permission from the funder. We still have this car, but we want to use it for project continuity, or you want to keep it as an institution for this and this, and you get approved rather than just keeping assets that don't belong to you after the project has closed out. You must make sure you're keeping these with authority of the funder. That's how, if there are no guidelines, then you pursue it yourself, get the approvals. Review and document lessons learned, retain project records. Because in the future, we've got the programs from experience. We've had projects which they have come to audit after 15 years. Or at least 10 years, we have got all of those. Ensure compliance. What are the grant rules and responsibilities? Ensure compliance with rules and reporting requirements. You must, if you want to be a good grants manager. Maintain adequate financial and technical records. Perform periodical checks on the scope of the project. Are you faring well? Will you be able to achieve the desired goals, outcome, deliverables, etc.? Monitor budget against activities. We have said this before, you can't just spend so many dollars without knowing that it's related, it's in line, it tallies with activities as expected. Communicate regularly with all stakeholders. Effective communication is key. Maintain transparency and credibility with all stakeholders. Maintain and update project records. Attend to advice and queries. Ask for a no-cost extension where necessary. Ensure effective cash management. Conduct due diligence on the credibility of collaborators. If you have sub-grantees, for example, conduct due diligence because their failures will impact on you. You cannot be a standalone in a failing team. If a team is failing, you cannot be the one standing. So you must conduct due diligence to all the people you are working with because their failures will impact on you. Then the project manager's responsibility. This is the grantee's responsibilities. The entire, if your institution has been given money, what are your responsibilities? But now we are talking about specifically in this slide, project manager's responsibilities. The project manager has overall responsibility and oversight for the grant It lies in the hands of the project manager. If anything happens with the implementation, they will start with asking the project manager, what happened? And it will kill your personal reputation. The general responsibilities impact on the institution reputation, but this one impacts on the person, individual's reputation. Understand and ensure compliance with the terms and conditions of the grant. Ensure successful achievement of the project's grants and objectives. As the project manager has oversight on the submission of quality programmatic and financial reports within stipulated deadlines. I have to highlight something here. Many times project managers fail because they think financial reports are responsibility of the finance team. No, the financial team is supporting you in this process, but it's your responsibility to submit the report, to ensure they are submitted and they are accurate. Okay, you deem them liable in case of anything, I mean the finance people, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. That's why we fail as project managers. We think we exonerate ourselves from some of the laws, which are our own responsibility. Other people are just supporting us. Facilitate effective communication among all stakeholders. Ensure that all expenditure are allowable. Yes, the finance team will support you in this, but it's your responsibility. And you know better, by the way, from experience, project managers know better what they are supposed to spend on. Yes, we support them in the process. We try to read this document and know the guidelines of the stakeholders and know this should be allowable as finance teams, but you must be well conversant with your costs that are allowable or not. Maintain all project records for audit purposes. And the project manager is responsible for monitoring and managing contracted services, the subgrantees. Issues in grants management, lack of proper documentation is a big problem. You cannot say you're managing grants without documentation, really, for sure. This is obvious. You must have proper documentation. We talked about a very good trail of every single process. Inadequate and timely submission of reports. This is chaotic. This is a problem. If you fail to submit your reports in time, you've already failed. Inadequate award monitoring, lack of effective communication with stakeholders. We said something not communicated will not be done, and you cannot blame some people for not doing it because you've not told them. Incompetent project staff, lack of effective internal control and audit. Poor internal controls will cause fraud, conflict of interest. You'll not be able to achieve your goals. You must have a strong internal control environment. We already talked about elements of internal control, which include documentation, good policies and procedures, or good structure of approvals and reviews, audit and reconciliation, segregation of duties. They should be on your fingertips. Lack of course, it should be on our fingertips, all of us, to know that a strong internal control environment has those 5 elements. Documentation, once again, because this is, I must repeat, well-documented policies and procedures, a good structure of authorization and approvals, audit and reviews, and segregation of duties. Lack of credit, that is internal control element. That's what I've been mentioning. Lack of credible and competent partners. But I noted that those elements of internal control are not listed there. That's why I've repeated them over time and over time, or time after time in this session. Then lack of credible and competent partners. They will fail you if you don't look for very good partners. If you don't build the capacity for your partners, you'll fail in grants management. You must make sure you're strong, you're competent, but also your partners. Find all ways to make your partners credible and competent. Avoid conflict of interest anywhere by you following your documented procedures, complying with funders, policies and procedures. You avoid conflict of interest. Lack of internal policies and procedures. Oh God. This is impacts on ineffective internal controls, inadequate procurement standards, delay in project setup, over underspending of funds. People think that overspending is the only problematic thing, but also greatly underspending funds might mean something. For example, if you ask for $30 million and you only spend $1 million, they will think either you failed in estimation your cost, which is bad, a bad reputation, or you didn't implement, or you didn't know what you are supposed to do anyway. Because someone who knows that, or know what the scope of what they are going to do, they will be near almost saturate with their estimations. Yet they might not be very exact, but they should be within range. So even underspending is by a bad reputation to you, by the way, in grants management. So we must be sure when we budget, we are we are as accurate as possible, and also whatever spend is in line with activities, that we don't grossly underspend. But doesn't mean that you use funds anyhow to make sure you don't underspend. No, you must have a good accountability, and it must be credible spending, you know, still. But if you follow good procedures, good planning, you don't have this gross and underspending of funds. No, discrepancies between narrative, but also underspending can be avoided by you planning ahead of time. You track your budget, you see that you're underspending, and you contact your funder in time to say, no, I have spent a lot of surplus here. Can I divide it to this activity which is underfunded? Or can I put another activity here which would impact on our output positively? So you planning ahead of time helps you to avoid the underspending, by the way. So but I'm not saying that underspending, I've already said it before, it doesn't mean that you just use funds anyhow to avoid underspending. No, planning, like I've told you, and being in touch with your funder to see how you can in a timely manner be able to observe the money in a good way to do better for a project or program is key. Timely planning and the allocation of funds is key, because many funding bodies will not want you to return money when the project has ended, because themselves it will impact on them returning money. You know, it is a lot of inconvenience. But if it impacts on adding an impact on the output of that very project, or adding another component within the time of the project, by the way, that's why planning, budget monitoring, timely monitoring of projects is key, because you know this in time. Some people have failed in grants management by saying we have a lot of surplus at the end of the project, when no planning can be done, no reallocations can be done. It's too late for us to do that. So timely tracking helps us to avoid underspending. Of course, overspending, we have said also, is obviously bad. I'm dwelling on underspending because some people think underspending is good, but it's not. Discrepancies between narrative and financial reports, oh God, avoid this, because that means you've used the money anyhow, because the output is not tallying with the money you dished out. Oh God, that one should be really avoided. Expenditures in unauthorized budget categories in reports should also be avoided if you want to be very good. This slide is also very key, very important points in this session, really. Risk indicators in grants management. Please do not do the following: misuse of project funds, using project funds for other things that are not related to the project, that shouldn't be heard of in grants management. Failure to comply with agreed rules and regulations, oh God, you should avoid this. Tolerate misconduct or violation of grant conditions. You shouldn't tolerate it at all. Spending in a long budget category is wrong. Allow ongoing minor problems to be left unresolved. Oh, this is chaotic. You might think these things are minor, you leave them unresolved, but the impact on you at the end of the day, nothing is small in a relationship, in a grants relationship. Resolve things as they come, please, as much as possible. Compromise meeting project goals. You cannot compromise meeting project goals at all. You must aim at 100% project goals achievement. Give false certification of requirements. You don't certify things which are not complying with the requirements. Anything that's not complying, make sure you under it there and then. You don't certify it, because the moment you append your signature, you say this is okay, it will still impact on you at the end of the day. So for you to help yourself and your reputation as an vigilant organization, don't certify false requirements. Grant management best practices. Organize receipt and management of funds. Organize receipt and management of funds. You must be organized. Upon award, convene a meeting of all stakeholders. Build consensus through effective communication. Regular team build. I'm not explaining this again because I've explained them to the before, like effective communication. It's really important, very, very important in grants management and relationship management. Regular team building efforts. Develop a grant management plan or strategy. Facilitate strict adherence to reporting obligations. Develop internal guidelines and rules for managing grants. We've said this and over and over again. Develop a system of quality review and control. Continuous building of the team and stakeholder capacity. Maintain accountability and transparency. Maintain an effective feedback system. Ensure compliance with signed agreements. You must comply with the terms and conditions of stakeholders to the dot if you want to be a very good grants manager. Effective financial grants management requires complying with regulations and requirements, apply financial management principles, have and comply with policies and procedures, internal controls, document expenses very well. Performance monitoring is crucial. Grant closeout is a must. These are key in grants and financial management, in effective financial and grants management. Complying with regulations and requirements, applying financial management principles, have and comply with policies and procedures, have a strong internal control system, document expenses very well, performance monitoring is crucial, and grant closeout is a must. It's not a choice, but it's a must. So now in this section, we're looking at key aspects in grants management, items that cut across all funding agencies, let me see, not funding requirements, but agencies. Accountability, very important part of any grants or project. A major challenge though must, here we are saying it must be done within 30 days of completion of the activity or 60 days from the date of release of funds, whichever comes first. However, from experience, my personal advice is account as soon as the activity ends, because many prefer to account not because they don't want, but they have lost track of what happened in the field. They have lost the documents. You know, you cannot account after so many days. You have forgotten what any just special you give for all under of expenditure. You've forgotten. Some documents are lost. So for you to account effectively, you have to do it as soon as possible. Accountability includes a breakdown of how funds were spent, supporting documents and activity reports. Supporting documents and activity reports is key. We cannot be accounting without the outcome, without the technical report. Failure to account is very deleterious to a program. Programs should have mechanisms to deal with failure to account in a rigorous way before things get out of control. Partial accountability is allowable with an explanation for pending accomplishments. You know, instead of you complete a failing, you do partial accountabilities with explanation for why you're not giving the rest of the accountability. Maybe the activity is still ongoing. You'd rather do partial accountability than losing track completely, by the way. It is better to submit partial accountability or for delayed project execution rather than have no accountability at all. Common reasons why people fail to account. And some of them cannot be explained, but others can be explained. The non-explainable ones is fear of accounting and the belief that accountability is a complicated process. Why do you even fear before you start? Please, it's not difficult to account. That's just a conception. Procrastination, mainly manifested by serial postponement. Why do you keep postponing things that you can do today to tomorrow? Let's avoid that in accountability, but of course, even generally in our endeavors. Forgetting to capture evidence for attachments. Oh, this is disaster. Many of us start even spending and do not know that we need the evidence for accountability afterwards. Not implement the accountabilities for which funds were released. Partial implementation, you get partial attendance levels for meetings, yet funds were requested in full. Being very busy and not delegating. Most PIs are very busy, but they don't delegate. But not delegating is poor management, by the way. Fraud. Where the funds for the project are misused or stolen by the implementers, God forbid. You must have internal controls not for your funds not to be stolen. Manage risk before it falls due. Before it faces you. The explainable reasons why prepare to account, mitigating circumstances in the field. We fail to mitigate circumstances in the field as PIs, as implementers, major changes, sickness, insecurity, community factors, etc. This helps us if risk management helps us in this area. Delay in actual implementation, delayed procurements that are not in synchronization with the activities, and IRB delays. But all these, we can be able to manage them. We can report in time to the funding agents, and we can start to reschedule our work plan, or we can fit the activities that we didn't do early in future. But that doesn't mean we don't account anyway, because if there are delays, then you haven't used the money. So why do you give that excuse not to account? So we should avoid such small, these are all small excuses, reasons to fail us to account. We should be able to account without any choice. So let's now look at disallowable key requirements for grant expenditure. What are the costs that are always, because from experience in grants management, there are costs that will will any funder cannot allow. Actually, the cut across. Yes, no. The moment you buy alcohol in a grant, automatically that is disallowable. Luxurious products, of course, automatically they are disallowable. You can't, you just buy the no more necessary projects, not those like buying a penny at $1,000 when you can get one at $25. Really, you cannot justify such a cost. Partying, you cannot go to celebrate on a funder money, really, which is supposed to be implemented for a certain activity. No, avoid conflict of interest. You must have a good trade of whatever you did, and fairness. Yeah, you say there's competition. If it's procurement, there's competition here. Reflect value for money and show competition in your procurements. Because if there's that you fair, you follow your procurement procedures, nobody can allow your costs. But they will disallow if you just go to one vendor, buy without any reason. That will even cause conflict of interest for no reason. Time apportionment, time sheets. Why don't you account for your time as personnel? What will there be? What do you have to show as proof that you've worked? So let's get used to the culture of completing a time sheet. Take note of the Buy American Act for US government funding. Take time to read your funder contracts. What are the guidelines? What are the conditions? Because you can't comply with what you've not read, what you don't know. So for you to be able to comply, you must be well conversant with the funding contracts requirements. Business and first class air tickets cannot be bought from funders' money. So really, when there is a condom made, that will take you to the same destination where you're wasting resources, they will be disallowed and will cause audit queries in your reports, which will cause bad reputation. By that, maybe you don't know the dangers of bad audit reports, qualified ones, but even they might be unqualified with many queries that impacts on your reputation and future funding. So we must avoid such small queries in our reports. And they're not small, by the way. Any coin lost is hard to get back, to recover. Travel prior approval where necessary. Some of us, we have grants, we need prior approval to travel, and we don't get the prior approval. They will disallow, and it will be a query in your report. Any changes in regional contractual requirements must be approved. You must seek approval for any changes. Not fund a policy on over expenditure and budget reallocation and comply with it. Conclusion: finance and grants management is about having policies and procedures, a good system in place, a very strong internal control, making sure these are complied with, but also compliance to grant terms and conditions coupled with transparency and accountability is key. Quality assurance and risk management is key as far as financial and grants management are concerned. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good Thanks for listening in. Sorry, I'd muted beforehand. Thanks for listening in this session, and have blessings as you manage your finance and grants in future. Thanks very much.